Hi everyone, it's Srishti from India Currents. Waiting on Yashu to join us. Our topic this week is Desis in Nonprofit, and I'm really interview segment, which is kind of new to us. And this person is really interesting. The work they do is really interesting, so I'm very excited to have them on board. And they'll be talking a little bit about what it's like for them, work as a Desi person working in nonprofits. And then, of course, as you know, India Currents is a nonprofit. So what does it mean for someone like me to work within nonprofit? And how does, what is the perception, um, social perception of what that means for us? So yeah, I'm really excited for what we have today. I think these interview segments have been really empowering and very insightful, so I hope we can continue having them. And oh, look, there's Yashu, so we're just waiting for Yashu to join us now. So yeah, I think this will be great. And then also Yashu works in nonprofit work on the side, so I think we all have a little bit of insight to give. Uh, Let me add her. Give me a second. Okay. I think I'm getting better at starting these lives, but there's just too much stuff happening with the technology. Hey, Yashu. Hey,
Hi!
girl.
Oh my God,
Yay.
you're back.
Oh, well, don't you look nice?
Oh, thank you. Listen, I am so excited about today. We have got such a dope episode for you guys. In general, this whole month we've been talking about careers when it comes to the Desi South Asian community. And last week we had two amazing entrepreneurs in the arts come on our live and talk to us about their businesses and how it feels to be a Desi entrepreneur. And today, we are talking about nonprofit, which is also a huge, huge sector, something that a lot of us are very passionate about. And we've got an amazing guest speaker for today as well. But before we get there, I am Yashu Rao, plus model and confidence coach, and I am here breaking down stereotypes and beauty standards by empowering people to lead life with self-love. And my co-host,
Hey, I'm Srishti Prabha, the managing editor at India Currents. I got promoted, so hey. Um, Thank you. Yeah. Yes, hopefully editor soon. But so managing editor currently, before I was assistant editor, and you can follow me at Problems or at India.Currents. This is where we post all our lives and all the content that we have on IndiaCurrents.com. Of course, there's more on the website, so please check it out. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can obviously subscribe to our YouTube channel, which actually now exists with our Desi lives on it, which is a whole process of stripping the video from Instagram, putting it on YouTube, so you can check it out there. And of course, yeah, like and follow us. So yeah, let's start talking about this topic.
yeah.
This is a juicy topic. I love this topic because it's very near and dear to my heart. What do you think about nonprofit work?
So first of all, I want to let people know that nonprofit work, a lot of people have a tendency to kind of like nonprofit, so you not making no profit. But I think that is something that we definitely have to kind of like let people know, what does a nonprofit even mean? And so, Srishti, can you, in your own words, kind of tell us like what is a nonprofit?
Well, yeah, I think that's like a good point to actually define it. Nonprofits, they are structured exactly like corporate organizations. The big difference is simply that any profit that you make goes back into the company or to like building out whatever company is giving the resources. So building out the resources or whatever. And then obviously there's different delineations of how, what number, under which number you are as like a nonprofit. So like India Currents is a 501c3. So that means we can accept grants from, federal and state organizations, depending on what those grants are and what those grants, if they're, relevant to our organization. So yeah, it is very similar to a corporate structure. You could
potentially make tons of money actually in nonprofit work. That wouldn't be awesome because hopefully that money is going back to the community. But yeah, what is there like something specific that you feel is like super different about nonprofit and corporate world?
And I think for me, it's actually the fact that it's not so different. A lot of people think like, oh, nonprofit, that means you're just giving up on like everything that you do and you're just gonna go and work for, like a free cause or just kind of volunteer your time and not really do anything or make anything out of it. But I think that is something that needs to get like, that's not true. That's not how nonprofits work. It is very corporate. It does have many layers and levels to it, which is something that is important to let people know. I know a common misconception is that you don't really, as an individual, have an entity or have a say in a nonprofit, which is not at all true. So that's definitely
it's kind of the opposite. I feel like it's actually the absolute opposite, is that you get to do more work, you get to develop more skills, you wear way more hats working in nonprofit versus working in the corporate sector where things are very like structured, much more structured, because you have, I will say they have more money generally. Speaking. So you're going to have more employees, you're going to have more people, more hands on a project, which could potentially mean that you don't get to work on a project because somebody else is already doing it, versus at a nonprofit where you're given access to a lot of opportunities. Like nobody this young, like my age, is usually a managing editor and editor of a magazine, right? Like that doesn't ever happen because it's just, there's so many people that wouldn't do this job. That's actually true. Like they're less likely to do this job. They might be less equipped to do this job because you would need to do, why is an editor working and doing a live and then also editing and then also writing and then also running social media? Like you're wearing so many hats. So it's not everyone's thing. I think it's like everyone will find the place that makes them feel best. And I think for me, this is a good space. But I also do want to note that, yes, sometimes the pay is not great. I've worked in a lot of nonprofits to admit to the fact that you might not make that much money, but the social impact that you have, and it's always, possible that you'll end up in another nonprofit where you will make more money. Like, doesn't necessarily mean you're stuck at one place for the rest of your life. I think that is the misconception, is that you accept a job and that doesn't mean that's the job for the rest of your life. It's never. Most of the times you don't ever stick to one job, right? So anything can be a stepping stone. Anything can be help you in finding your passions and your pursuits and all of that. So yeah, that's what I feel.
And we got some really good questions coming. And hey, guys, we highly encourage the questions. Keep dropping your questions. This is a great opportunity for you guys to ask anything, related to the topic. We're here to support you guys, myself and Srishti, okay? So we got a question here that says, do nonprofit employees get paid? Do they get a salary? And then another question is, how is the work-life balance? I'm truly interested in this topic. So answering the first question, from your experience, do people get salaries?
Yeah, I worked at nonprofits where I've received salaries, and then I'm working at India Currents right now where I get like grant money. So I get paid, but it's not, I will say the job that I had prior, I worked in low-income affordable housing in the Bay Area at Mid-Penn, and I got benefits. I had a salary. I did not like the job. That was different, but the job had all the benefits and all that. Actually, I will say salaried employees at a nonprofit is actually not a great situation sometimes, because at least at my last job, I would work a lot of overtime and I would be on site because I did like a very physically demanding job where I had to be present. And because there were times where I would stay because I had to, because someone needed my help. They needed help with their rent, or they, like they were getting evicted and they needed me there then. And so I would have to stay past 5 or 6 or whatever my hours were. And then I would get reprimanded by my superiors because they said that, you have to get approval for overtime. We will not pay you for overtime that you do without approval, all this stuff. And the issue was like, how do you get approval for overtime when you don't? I'm at a job where circumstances are random, things are happening all of a sudden, people need help. Like that's the point of this kind of work in the community. It's like it's not predictable, so you kind of have to do it on, you know, all of a sudden. And the fact that they weren't paying me overtime was actually problematic. So
For sure.
yeah.
And then in terms of work-life balance, like I know you work hard, you work all the time, you know, and from my experience, my experience with working in nonprofit is I was the president of the Florida chapter for Asha for Education, which I think a lot of you may have heard of, right? Which is also 501c3 or nonprofit. And so my time, of course, as this was more of like a student chapter based, so it was more volunteer work. There was no salaries. Salaries were always kind of seen only on like the upper management, if you will call it, right? More in the corporate office, but everything else was just more grounds work and things that were happening in the local community. And it was a lot of work in the sense that you're volunteering your time. So you're taking time out of your day-to-day to do things. So for me, I was very passionate. And when I was there, I was very active. But some of the other people who I was working with were not as active as I was, right? And that's always conflicting, right? So so it's very important to know, you know, how do you run your little area? You're the president or whatever. How do you run your little you know, mini nonprofit, right? Or sub nonprofit, which is always important. But then also being able to tap in with your upper management was also a really good learning lesson. But of course, you know, knowing that, okay, well, we're helping education programs in India, that's always so heart-touching. And when we hear back from our kids, that always made the difference. So when it comes to work-life balance, you do have to put in a lot of work, especially if you're kicking off your nonprofits. I also had experience working with a nonprofit that was kicking off. Like we had just come up with it, we were launching it. And that was for women empowerment here where I live, Gainesville, Florida. And so for that nonprofit, again, because it's us kicking it off, it's like all of that work is on us, right? We doing all of that back end work. So there's no as such, you know, you can create balance for yourself. You need to be the one who's drawing the lines of like how much you can and cannot do. So that's my take. And I know Srishti is working kind of in a different atmosphere than what I worked with. But for you, you know, how is the work-life balance?
Yeah, work-life balance is hard. I don't even think it has anything to do with nonprofit. I think I have a lot of, no matter what industry you're in, work-life balance can be difficult to mitigate. And for example, like I'm doing this live after my work hours. It's at 6 and it will run, I'll probably have to put in extra time. So it'll probably run to like 7:30, whatever. So I try to give myself time at other points to make up for that. So for example, I might start later today if I have, today's actually my busiest day because we have our newsletters, so they go out today. But what I'll do is I'll start later tomorrow, or I'll try to account for that hour somewhere else and like take it during the day because why I put in this extra time. So, you know, I have to take it somewhere and I want to take it somewhere. So I will like give myself a lunch break that's longer or something, or start later. And you don't have to, you know, I feel like people always compare themselves to other people and I don't compare myself to anyone else, right? I know how much work I can take on. I know how much work I can do and I will not do more than that. There's times where I work on the weekends and then there's times where I don't. So yeah, just trying to give and take where I can and try to like balance it out somehow. You just have to learn how to do that. And I don't think that's just nonprofit work, but definitely more in nonprofit work.
You know, we're going to have our guest speaker come on soon. So that's going to be even more, you know, answers for you guys. We have got an amazing interview lined up with Venu, who is coming to us with so much information, his passion for, you know, being in this whole nonprofit world. And I know, Srishti, you're going to interview him. We've got great questions lined up. And guys, if you have questions, be sure to drop them in the comments. We want to hear it. I'm going to drop off so we can get Venu on here. And I'll be in the comments, okay? Like, I'll be typing away in the comments. And again, guys, be sure to follow India.Currents. All of you guys who are here right now, be sure to follow India.Currents for all the latest news, all the updates on Desi Talk, and of course to read my amazing columns, okay? on Desi Talk as well in India Currents. And of course, follow Prabha Lems and myself, Yashu Rao. Our things are pinned in the comment here. And of course, follow our guest speaker, okay? Follow our guest speaker, Venu. His IG handle is also pinned in the comment. And I'm going to go ahead and drop off because I can't wait. Like, I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm pretty excited about these segments that we're doing now, and I'm sad again that Yashu can't be here to ask the questions, but she can obviously ask them in the chat just like the rest of you can as well. So with that, Yashu, you're welcome to drop off, and I'll do a little introduction for Venu. So let me first add him. Okay. So Venu is currently a developmental associate based in the Washington, D.C. area, and he works at the UNRWA USA. Hey, Venu, I'm going to keep introducing you. UNRWA is a nonprofit that supports the work of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Prior to his work at the UNRWA USA, Venu worked at the developmental and philanthropy team at the National Multiple Sclerosis Society in Seattle, Washington. That's a tongue twister. Oh. And and at the India Home Inc. in Queens, New York. Welcome, Venu. I'm so excited to hear from you. So why don't you tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, what's your nonprofit? Let's get it going.
Cool. So thanks. Really excited to be here. Thank you to you and Yashu for having me. This is my second time going live on Instagram, so I don't have a phone stand. So if my phone falls over, sorry about that.
I don't have a phone stand either, and I don't even. And I do this every. I have it on my laptop, so you're good.
So, my name is Venu. I currently reside right outside of Washington, D.C. in North Bethesda, Maryland. And as you mentioned, I work for UNRWA USA. We are a nonprofit that supports the United Nations Relief and Works Agency based in downtown Washington, D.C. I'm sorry, I forgot the rest of what you asked me.
No, that was a lot of it, like who you are, where you're from. So what got you into nonprofit work? Like, what was your education prior to getting into it? Kind of give us a little story.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Texas. I grew up in a town called Lubbock. For if you've heard of it, I'm sorry you've heard of it. Yeah, so it's a city in West Texas, and I grew up the typical Desi lifestyle. My father is a physician, and my entire family is literally physicians or engineers, and that's pretty much it. And in fact, my twin sister Ronnie, she's actually in medical school. So pretty much,
that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big part of my life, and in fact I actually grew up with thinking I want to go in the same path. I want to be a doctor. And then as I got older and went into high school and took science, I was like, I hate this so much. Like this is not my vibe. Like I don't really want to do this, but I always knew that I wanted to be able to help people. And as I got to read more, and once I got into college, I got to really learn more about the nonprofit sector. I was like, okay, this is a great way to avoid science, but still make a difference. And I think a lot of people forget that there's a lot more to helping people than your typical STEM roles. And so I actually ended up studying public affairs and nonprofit management at the University of Texas at Dallas. So I kind of really dove straight in educationally in the nonprofit sector.
Okay, so you're a strong one. You decided it quite early what you wanted to do. I love that. So okay, so then you were like, okay, I'm ready to go into nonprofit. Did you face any backlash from your parents or from other people around you? Like, how did you decide what kind of nonprofit work you wanted to go into? What was it like?
Definitely my parents, they're very supportive. I have to give them a big shout out. They're really supportive. But I remember when I told especially my father about it first, he didn't take it too well. And I think it mainly comes from the lack of education, right? Like in India, you're really not taught that you can do anything with any degree. You're taught to either go to med school or be an engineer or be a lawyer, something like, professional, whatever. But I think, it really took a toll on them at first. And my parents were very uncertain, and even my extended family. And to be honest, to this day, I still face backlash. Everyone, you're not making money. Why are you in this? Why don't you go into medicine or IT and make money and then donate to nonprofit? that line.
I get that all the time. You can only give back if you have money. I'm like, okay.
And it's funny because, I work for a nonprofit and I actually give to my nonprofit. So it's like, you can do both. I think as I got to educate them more on the nonprofit sector, and especially in this last 10 months now that I've been working at UNRWA USA, it's definitely given my parents like a better exposure, and they're starting to understand more. I'm not saying that I don't get the, hey, why don't you do this, or go into something else. That definitely will happen, something Desi that's going to happen, but they've gone a lot more understanding.
Yeah, so it's not so much like it was educating your parents and then probably just other people having their own perceptions of your career choice. That's what I'm kind of gaining from what you're saying, is that that's where you are at right now with the whole situation.
Pretty much, and
Right.
I'm lucky that my parents didn't outright say no, which they could have, and I don't know how that conversation gone. So I'm just glad that conversation never happened, for sure.
Right. And I mean, Yashu put in the chat, like, what will they think? Which is I speak Hindi, so it's always log kya kahenge. I'm sure it's different in your languages, but it's always hard to combat like what other people are going to think, including your parents, because you just don't know what they're going to say to you. And I totally agree, like, about not knowing even about the choices in the world that are not just engineering, law, and then medicine. Like, that's what we're told is like the way. And so I feel like going to college, you were smart and you kind of like got the lay of the land. It took me till graduating in biology to be like, I don't know about this anymore. So that was like a full education turnaround. So anyway, tell us, like, how did you decide which kind of where you wanted to work in nonprofit? Did it kind of happen naturally? Are you like working at I called it UNRWA, but it's you said UNR. I don't know how you said it. How did you say it?
It took me a while until after I started working. It's either you can say UNRWA or UNRWA USA. That's
UNRWA. Okay.
Kind of easier, but no. So it was kind of accidental, me getting into nonprofit development and fundraising. So I first started off in college as an intern at India Home. India Home was actually started by a close family friend of ours, and so whom I practically consider my aunt, a very important aspect of my family. And so, in fact, I actually also have to give her a shout out. She really was the main person that talked to my parents and like really supported my journey in the nonprofit world. And so I started off. India Home is a South Asian senior center that serves South Asian seniors in New York. It's the first of its kind, actually, and they have 4 centers in Queens. And so when I was, summer freshman to sophomore year, I decided to go intern and just, actually work in the centers and more. I didn't immediately go into nonprofit management. I actually started off as social work major. So I kind of went into, servicing the seniors and helping them in any way possible. And so, that was really cool. Really enjoyed that. But then as the time went on, my sophomore year, I started realizing I was more interested in like the administration of nonprofits rather than the social work side. The sad reality too was, it's very unfortunate, but social work majors are the lowest paid majors. And it's really depressing.
That's true. Yeah.
The sad reality is, as much as I want to, do what I'm passionate about, I also have to think about making a financial living, and living in Washington, D.C., there's no exception to that, right? Like that's cost insane. Like I have to pretty much cut off my arm to pay rent every month. So, I definitely thought about that. And so, India Home actually called me back in 2018 and they're like, we have this capital campaign that we're trying to work on. And I want you to help us on it. And so I didn't even know what a capital campaign was to begin with. I knew nothing about it. But that's when I realized it was more fundraising. And, we were writing grants to the city of New York, city council to get money. And so, and we're doing a lot of peer-to-peer fundraising. And I think that's what really made me fall in love with it. And I think, some of the contributions that I made and the team made at India Home, it actually helped us win a $1.477 million capital grant.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot.
So, right, that like so many people forget that you can't you can't do anything in this life without having money, right? I can't go on Instagram Live right now without having the money to buy a phone and have internet, you know? And it's the same thing in a nonprofit organization. You know, you have to be able to raise the funds to be able to help people. And I think that really drove me and, you know, made me a lot more passionate about nonprofit development.
Right, right. I mean, all of the things that you said make sense. I guess the question is, obviously the work that we do, it's never going to pay as well as if we were doing that same job elsewhere. So how do you reconcile those two things? And I had another question that someone actually put in the chat, and I want to ask it just so that you are aware. They said you and your sister are twins and you guys have different, you know, like different careers. Is it competitive? Like, what is it like for you guys? And there was another comment that somebody was saying they noticed no Desis in elderly homes. So you can start where you want. I just wanted to put those out there for you. Yeah.
Order. So we'll go with your question first, if you don't mind asking it again.
Oh, my question was, now I forget my question. Oh, reconciling not making as much as if you were doing the same job elsewhere. Yeah.
You know, to be honest, it is something I struggle with, and I think every nonprofit professional struggles with. But at the same time, you know, I think about what's going into my work, right? When you joined the nonprofit sector, I knew from the second I chose my major, I was like, okay, I'm not going to be making an upper six-figure level salary, no matter how
Yeah.
far I go really far. But like, you know, it's like 1% of people will ever go that far, you know? And so I think for me, it's like, the difference of like, you know, helping people, right? It really helps me. And, you know, there are those days where, you know, you guys were mentioning work-life balance, right? And to be honest, and I'm really horrible at work-life balance. I mean, any of my friends will tell me I suck at it. Like, you'll see me. In fact, I was literally reading an email right before this call, and it's 9.
Yeah.
So, you know, and you know, I'll look at weekends, and I think, you know, what's made it harder now too is work from home. There's no between work and home, right? So you're just like, you're at your here. So, you know, but, you know, I think that it just drives me, you know, and I know that there are people out there that are in much worse positions than I am. And, you know, so I count my blessings. And I know, right, there is a reason for everything in life, and it'll work out. That's just kind of the philosophy that I.
Okay, and then the next question, I have things to say to respond, but I want to ask that question of you and your sister are twins and in separate fields. So what is it like? Is it competitive? Do your parents compare you guys? Do other Desi parents compare you guys? What's the situation?
All the time. And again, like I said, it doesn't, you know, and again, my twin sister, she's been nothing but supportive. And, you know, if there's probably one of my biggest advocators, it is her. And so, you know, but it does get competitive in the sense of, you know, I will never discount medical school because I know I could never do it. It is so tough. And, you know, some of the stuff my sister goes through, I'm just like, I could never do this. And so, you know, but again, I think there is that competitive level of being in the nonprofit world is also not easy. And it's harder to explain that, if you get what I'm saying, right? It's harder to be like, hey, we actually are also having a rough day here. No, I'm not studying for the USMLE. No, I'm not studying immunology.
Yeah.
But we are working really hard, and there are different issues that we have to put up with. And so there's that. And then, you know, all the time from family, like, oh, your sister went to medicine. What went wrong with you?
What went wrong?
You know,
Yeah.
I even say in quotes, someone even said, you're the outcast of your family, or that, and I was just like, I don't even know what that means. But okay, you know, and it's really funny. My mom actually got really upset, and she defended me to that uncle. So I was really surprised and happy that she did that. But like, that happens all the time. It is a given, but you know, I try to not let it phase me, because if I do, then I'm only going to be affecting myself and like my job. So.
Absolutely. I think that's the big takeaway is like you can't let what other people think or say really bother you. And along the same lines, like I've had aunties and people offer me jobs because they think that the job that I have right now is not really the job that I want because they don't get paid a lot. And I do it just because it's like an easy job. But just like you said, this job it takes a lot out of you. I do it all the time. I mean, there is no, it's hard, especially in the pandemic, to definitely keep that work-life balance regardless of what you're doing. But you know, it's like, why are you out? It's like pity. Like, I see the pity in everyone's eyes, and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm actually very happy with what I'm doing, but like, you can't let those things phase you. So, you know, it was awesome to hear about what you're going through because I can really resonate with it. I just want more people. Misery loves company, you know, a little bit. So it's good to hear about what you had to deal with. And, you know, obviously the work that you're doing is super important. And do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like how people can support you and your nonprofit and what advice you have?
I first answered the last question I think someone was asking. So there's no Desis in elder homes. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think so. India Home is a daycare kind of like it's not a full-on senior care home yet. I know that is the concept. But to tell you the truth, after work, and India Home doesn't only serve Indians. I think I need to make that very clear. It serves the entirety of the South Asian community. And I think that there definitely is, you know, kind of a confusion there. But you would be surprised how many Desi seniors are actually in need of housing, especially in the New York area. As I really learned a lot. You know, the only Desi seniors we see are like our family members are all, you know, they're doing okay, right? For the most part. I know I don't want to speak for everyone, but right, they have a home and they're comfortable. But, you know, actually, if you look at it statistically, Bangladeshi senior citizens are actually some of the lowest income senior citizens in New York. And they live in low income public housing. And so it's definitely an issue that is trying to be solved. So right now, you know, of course, India Home does, you know, daycare and you know, it's a great center for them. But I know that there's a bigger mission and more capital grants.
Yeah, and then there's probably some cultural implications of sending a senior to a home or anything like that, because obviously our culture demands that, you know, your children take care of you. And if you don't have children, you're basically doesn't even matter. Like you're destitute, you're just going to be whatever. And like, that's definitely a stigma that we have to like combat and push, that like it also, like, elderly people need to socialize. Like, I don't know where this concept came from. I only have one living relative, is my grandma. She does not socialize. And I'm like, my nanny needs to talk to other old people to stay, you know, sane. Yeah, it's like, if I was only surrounded by kids, I would go crazy right now. If I was only surrounded by older people, I would go crazy right now. So they need people their own age, and it's just very, very, I'm very frustrated with the societal expectation of like, and also the idea of not doing anything. Like, your child will make chai, cook, clean, do everything for you, but it's like your faculties, you lose your faculties faster when you're not doing those things for yourselves. And I'm sure, like, going to like even just India Home, playing a game, doing something, like having a conversation, those are all faculties that you continuously use. If you're just sitting at home, you're not. So I don't know. I feel like that's an amazing nonprofit that you've been a part of, and I'm really glad that to have heard about it, and that, you know, that the statistic is pretty high. So that's frustrating that that's still a problem that we need to solve. So we have to end this interview, but I do want you to give the plug. How can people support you and your nonprofit and what you guys are doing?
For sure. So, you know, as I mentioned, Under USA, they support Palestine refugees. It's an issue that has really been suppressed in the last, you know, for so many years now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, actually, growing up in Texas, I wasn't even taught about the issue. I was taught that Israel's there and there's no issues. And we weren't even allowed to learn about Palestine, Gaza.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even learn about it until I was in college. So, you know, we're really proud to say we are a non-political nonprofit that works with an issue that is politicized, very politicized.
It's very politicized. To be on the Palestinian side in America is like pretty avant-garde, you know, and people don't really, I completely agree with what you're saying. Although I think even it doesn't have, human rights thing doesn't have to be a political issue at all, right? Like, they're just people that need basic things, and your organization is helping them receive those needs. I'm right.
Yeah,
I'm not speaking for you. I'm just asking.
No, you're right. It definitely, there was an effect when Donald Trump, he actually defunded UNRWA, the agency, by $300 million in 2018. And so luckily now with the Biden administration, again, non-politically, but, you know, the Biden administration is, you know, reinstating funding to Palestine refugees, but we don't know how much it's going to be. And so there's a lot of support that's needed. I will definitely, once I get off, I'll put in the chat what the link is. Please, you know, read about the issues, learn. You can donate online. Any amount really makes a difference. And actually,
read is important. Reading is hard, but reading is important.
Definitely important. So, you know, and if you really want to, you know, learn more about the issues, you have my Instagram. You can message me anytime. And you know, I really look forward to it. And I appreciate, you know, being here. I think it was good to really have this conversation.
Of course. And I would love, I mean, to have you write about what you guys are doing and why that's significant. If you ever want to, you're welcome to reach out to me. So with that, thank you so much, Venu, for coming and joining us on this live. It's been so wonderful to have a comrade in arms, and in a totally different way, of course. But love the work that you're doing, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Bye. All right, we're gonna bring Yashu back on if this works. All right, Yashu, you've been pretty vocal in the chat, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Gee, I would just like to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, Venu, for just talking to us, opening up that communication about nonprofit, letting us know that you went through this, you know, issue with your family and your extended family, or the Desi community, but you came out strong and shining. And I love the fact, I really just have to say this, but I love the fact that you pursued your education in nonprofit management. Like, that is so dope. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So for me to see that, I think you're definitely going to be a really big, huge Desi influence, right? For all of you Desi kids out there who are thinking about college, thinking about majors, now you know that there is a major out there where you can educate yourself about nonprofit, which is so valuable. And I see that Venu just dropped the link below. If Srishti, if you can go ahead and pin that comment, that would be awesome. Go to unrwausa.org. Okay, guys, pinned it right here. Go there, support the nonprofit. Now, with that being said, India Currents is also a nonprofit. So support India Currents. Okay, guys, support India Currents. Desi Talk would not be here if India Currents wasn't doing what it's doing today. And I know we're a little over time, but I have to ask you a couple of, I need to interview.
No, let's go for it. We can go a little over time. Yes.
And again, guys, we see a comment here from Venu. He said, if you have any questions about nonprofit, if you're looking to get into nonprofit, I know somewhere in my life along the way, I want to dive into having my own nonprofit. So I definitely know, you know, having Srishti on my side, having Venu on my side is going to be so beneficial for me. So guys, be sure to DM DT Venu 1997 as well. But my question for you is, being a Desi person, right, what advice do you have to give back to the Desi community? We heard Venu's, you know, side. I want to hear from you, being in a nonprofit. What advice do you have for all those people who are thinking about shifting their careers to nonprofit, maybe?
Yeah, I think, well, it's amazing that Venu could figure it out so quickly and so early in his life. I honestly think that's like I'm trying to think of the right word. It is like so powerful to basically know that about yourself so early in life. And I definitely didn't know, and I still don't, I wouldn't say I still don't know exactly what my end goal here is, but I do think like being able to give back to the Desi community was a big thing that I wanted in my life at some point, because, you know, as much as we don't think about it, there is elements of other Desi organizations that have probably influenced you at some point in your life without you really thinking about that thinking about the fact that they did that for you. So like I know ICC Shout out to ICC. Like, I used to go there. They had dance competitions. I would go to the competitions, you know, FIA, which I think they rebranded to something else, but I would like go to the melas on Independence Day and I would dance there. And again, I would like go to do dance competitions. Like, there were all these elements of my culture that I got to be introduced to. Even, for example, my Kathak school, and I go to Chitrishlas Institute, is a nonprofit. So I am learning from a nonprofit, and it's a totally different kind of nonprofit. So nonprofit is not one thing. Like, what Venu and I are doing are so different. What you are interested in doing is totally different. And nonprofit is like a very wide range of things that you can kind of go into. But yeah, like, all these nonprofits had such an impact on my life and my cultural upbringing and how I feel about myself today. Like, I would not be who I am if I didn't have those things. I wouldn't have strength in my character and my, like, you know, just like how I feel about myself internally. It comes from those spaces. Like, Kathak is a huge part of me. India Currents is now a huge part of me because, you know, I get so much information, like getting to connect with you. That's so significant. You live in Florida. I live in California, you know, and I know we don't talk about like each other as like people that interact too much, but like that is a significant thing that I get to learn from you, you know, and you're so far away. And I get to learn from Venu, who's someone, you know, that lives in a totally different place. So I'm super grateful for the place that I'm in. And even though I don't make very much money, I value all the things that I'm gaining from this experience and all the skills that I'm acquiring. And those things you can't put a value on, right? Hopefully.
And I feel like a lot of the things that we get out of life a lot of times don't really have anything to do with money. And as far as I'm concerned, just hearing this conversation, other than the money component, everything else seems to be like, this is what I love to do. This is meaningful to me. And I think that is so, so important. So thank you for sharing that, Srishti.
Of course.
With that being said, for everyone out there who is Desi, like Srishti had said before, if you guys grew up with some sort of like Desi organization, like I knew I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I had GWTCS, Greater Washington Cultural Telugu, or GW Telugu Cultural Sangam, right? You know, that's a 501c nonprofit too, right? So there's everything that you guys seeing out there. A lot of times they are nonprofits or they got nonprofit work happening on the back end. So be sure to give back to your community, give back to those programs that you grew up with, those programs that really need our help. I never knew about India Home, but that's definitely been something like I've thought about in my head growing up. I'm definitely going to check into that, especially because I've got very close friends who's like grandparents and everything kind of live in the Queens area. So, you know, being able to give back, I'm sure they're friends. There might be friends. Their friends are friends, right? So I'm definitely going to check that out. I'm so happy that I learned about this. And I feel like I'm always learning something. When I'm on Desi Talk, I'm learning something. So y'all
Me
better
too. Me too.
And I'm about to drop that plug. A work-life balance. Listen, I'm a work-life balance consultant. So, I mean, schedule your free 40-minute consultation with yours truly, okay? happyyashu.com. I'm going to end it right there.
Yes, definitely you know, if you are asking questions about work-life balance, she's a great resource. So follow at the Yashu Rao, follow at India.Currents if you don't already. Definitely check out DT Venu 1997. And then me, I'm Problem. So tune in next week for our next Desi Talk, and I'm sure it's going to be super enlightening just like this one was. Bye, Yashu.
Next month. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
For next
Oh,
month.
yeah. Let's talk about next month for just a second. Our next month series, which we've already planned, is going to be awesome. It's all about inclusivity, women's empowerment, poetry, literature, all these things that you can think of people are doing, immigration, whatnot. So come and hear some, you know, amazing women speak, including us. I'll include us. And yeah, we'll be having interviews every other week now. So we're trying new formats. We're trying to see what people like. And I think I would also just like to get into things with Yashu. So we're going to try to do 1 week of that and then 1 week of an interview. So stay tuned. Cool.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.